Immortals takes down Liquid.
To the juggernaut that is Immortals, who remains undefeated 10 games into the North American LCS.
I think Immortals is the best. TL's not going to be the best unless we beat them.
I'm not really afraid of playing against them. We can just focus on shutting down Lolo again.
Oh, they're going for Lorlo because the flash is down!
They're still undefeated, so I want to be the first to beat Immortals.
꼴등에서 1등을 올라가는 것보다 1등에서 밑으로 내려가는 게 더 쉬워요. 저희가 만약에 한 판 이긴다고 하면은 IMT도 쭉 떨어질 거라고 예상하고 있기 때문에 꼭 이기고 싶어요.
I don't think no one can stop us. It's impossible.
Welcome to day 2 of the North American LCS. We're revved and ready to deliver the best League of Legends action in North America, live from our home in Los Angeles, California. Now, yesterday was packed action, and the crowd is pumped for another day of exciting league matches. Earlier today, fans were gathered outside the Riot HQ and were hyped up to cheer on their favorite teams. Of course, inside, Coach Zix looks over Stixxay and Aframu practicing their bot lane synergy. They'll be going up against Renegades, who are at full attention for their pregame strategy talk. It's going to be a big one for both of those teams today. Joining us, thank you very much for joining us, this afternoon. I'm James Dash Patterson, and joining me on the analyst desk is Sam Kobe Hartman-Kensler, along with returning special guest Marcus Dyrus-Hill. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
There we go. That is the correct response, Kobe. You passed the first test of the analyst test today. All right, well, let's check in on the standings to see how the teams finished up day 1. Immortals is in first place, but C9, CLG, and TSM have found themselves in a three-way tie for second, 2 Sundays in a row. Energy Esports is in 5th, while Liquid sits just 1 win behind in 6th place. Echo Fox has tied up with Team Impulse in 7th, while Team Dignitas and Renegades fill out the bottom of the standings. We've got a packed day of games, though, today headed your way, starting with Renegades versus CLG. Then Dignitas goes up against TSM before Energy Esports faces off against Cloud9. Game 4, we'll see Team Impulse battle Echo Fox, and we'll finish the day with our match of the week, Liquid versus Immortals, where Dardoch will get another chance to prove himself against last week's MVP jungler. Now, we had a lot of great games yesterday, a few coming down to some impressive team fights. Echo Fox ended the day with a 60-minute slugfest to grab the 3rd straight win with their roster back in full form, which bumped them 1 rung higher up in the standings.
They did, and they did it with 2 Zerat portals, having to fight 2 Zerat portals as well. I don't know how exciting those portal fights are, but really the exciting part is that Echo Fox with Froggen back look amazing. Froggen has some crazy statistics as well. In his 5 games, he's got the highest first blood percentage, KDA, CS difference at 10, all the top stats for mid laners in the North American LCS. He has only played 5 games, though, so.
He's only played 5 games. He's played a fair amount of Corki as well, the last 3 games being on that Corki, and then we saw earlier in this split the Lissandra. I guess my question to you, Dyrus, would be, is there a champion pool? Is there a way to target ban him out so that he's not on a champion, that he can put forth these kinds of numbers and help carry this roster to the victories that they're seeing?
Well, not only is it a trending thing for Danish mid laners who are extremely good, these Froggen is especially like one of the veterans of the league, so banning him out is definitely out of the question. I think he's been playing for far too long to be banned out, and even if he is, like, he just has something under his sleeve.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he shows, even in a couple clips that we've seen, too, of those team fights, that he is always cool and calm under pressure and leading that team to victory as the veteran.
Yeah, something that comes with playing the game since it was released is that you've played all the champions pretty much. So, I mean, you can sort of target ban him and play what he's played most recently, but he definitely has more things he can do.
He's gone through all the metas, all the patches. And now we're here.
Now at the top of the tables, Immortals has shown that they are league's #1 team, but the race for second is as close as it's ever been, with a 3-way tie between CLG, Cloud9, and TSM. So starting with these 3 powerhouse teams, I want to go with Cloud9 first. Thoughts on them?
Yeah, Cloud9 have had some really exciting games as of late, but their game versus TSM was so close that TSM and CLG definitely still in this conversation for the #2 team. You know, everybody trying to get that spot behind Immortals because nobody can really crack that #1 spot.
That game was honestly insane because even with the small mistakes being made, like that one or two small mistakes turn into a huge one, and it just costs them the game. Even though they're winning for the majority of the game, one Soraka silence, root, one person getting caught, like the death timer at level 17 to 18 is just far too long. And with comps with Soraka, Gangplank, and, you know, against Kog'Maw, it's amazing how that turned out.
Yeah, the death timers point is definitely true because we're seeing already games across the world where teams will think that they can end the game and they go for a Nexus kill, get aced on their Nexus kill attempt, and get run all the way back, all the way to the other side of the map, even through extra outer turrets, and win the game off that. Like, it's just...
And
it's so long, you can just end it.
Let's not forget that this was C9 tying the head-to-head for TSM, meaning TSM got the better of them last time. So as it stands this split, those two teams even 1-1. Let's talk a little bit about TSM outside of just that game and how they've looked to improve, especially within the last 2 weeks compared to their first 4 weeks of play. Kobe?
Oh, me.
Help me out.
I thought we would go to the TSM
We can go to TSM
player. But I think
next.
that the main thing for TSM is that they've shown so much improvement bringing Weldon in. They showed it a lot on the TSM YouTube show, but getting the players to focus, you know, and there was a lot of pressure on the coaching staff to get all these stars to work together. And they finally have shown the ability to work together. The last couple of weeks, they've definitely had bigger improvements than they had for the rocky sort of start of the season. Plus, I feel like Bjergsen is getting back to his old dominant ways in the mid lane. He was a little bit rocky in the start, but definitely showing up very big for the team.
Now, Darius, I don't know how much interaction you have with the current roster of players at TSM, but something that kind of jumped out at me yesterday was even in the defeat moment, watching those players immediately huddle up, they didn't look nearly as defeated as they had in the past. I don't know if you can speak to whether or not this is a product of Weldon working with the team, but they seemed, even in that defeat, in the loss, to be holding their heads much higher and be much more unified as a team than they had been in weeks prior.
Still being a part of TSM, I'm still pretty much a spectator, so I know as much as, you know, the next Redditor. So when it comes to watching that, I can kind of see what's going through their minds when they're losing, you know, how they're doing team bonding when you watch TSM Legends. Like, it's something that they've been through so much, and it just shows that they have so much potential still going into it. Honestly, they're kind of like the new CLG where they just have so much potential, but they're not just, you know, synergizing together perfectly.
Right.
But,
Well,
you
it's
know,
only fitting you pick up double lift, that the torch passes for the potential, right?
yeah, just too much potential.
Well, speaking of CLG, the team that once had a ton of potential might now have that potential realized here with this roster. Let's talk about them for a moment. I mean, they have had interesting games where they've made questionable decisions. The game against TSM, for example, where the second game against TSM in which they lost, where they just kind of opted out of their classic lane swap strategy. You know, what's our diagnosis of this team? Are they just a lane swap team? That's the only key to victory for them?
So they did return to the strong early game and the strong lane swap and objective trading in the mid game. But one new thing that they did show was Smithy on an offensive jungler, on Nidalee. And he crushed it. He had the highest damage on the team. He had all these great numbers, you know, high CS. And he was able to play that invading style jungler and use Nidalee. Maybe we'll see him return to his days of Lee Sin and the glory days of Smithy, like Vulcan Smithy, right?
Yeah.
But so, you know, those are, yeah, your eyes get real big when you hear that, but like, it's been a long time where people have, you know, kind of been down on Smithy ever since the Sejuani era.
Right.
And he really had a good Nidalee performance.
He definitely is capable of performing
Yes,
and doing it
he's
that
done it
way.
before.
And with Double Lift off the team, they definitely have like a different team dynamic. Whoever's like strategizing and planning those 2v1s and those strong early games is definitely making a huge difference for CLG.
Awesome. I'm going to put you on the spot now, Darius. I'm going to ask you, which of these three teams would you pick to be the second place team in the NALCS by the end of the split?
I want to say TSM, and they have the most potential because from what I've seen, like, they could have easily taken that game. And at the same time, I want to say C9 because Balls has been such a monster. And as for CLG, they have, like, it's just so close. But honestly, I'm just a TSM fanboy.
That's fair. That's fair. Go with your heart, right? And who knows, over the next 3 weeks, if that potential is fully realized, then they definitely are in the conversation for top 2 teams in the North American LCS. Well, yesterday, in his interview, Adrian said he thinks CLG has the best shot of taking a win off of Immortals. And Immortals, they definitely looked shaky in their game against Renegades yesterday, even pulling out the win.
Yeah, as much as every time we talk to an Immortals player, after every single win, every game they play, which is every single win, every single time an Immortals player is like, you know what, we don't take anybody for granted, we take every game seriously. That game, they pulled out the Jungle Rumble, which is a little bit different for them, and having Reignover not with a champion who had hard CC looked like it did affect them, and not quite as mobile. He went for an early invade, or a very deep invade, without the support of his laners, and that was kind of the first cracks that we've really seen in an Immortals early game. I mean, they have been behind in gold before, even to TSM early in the season, but they always seem to come back and take the victory, and I think that scare of playing that poorly against Renegades is going to spur them on to play very well.
Will shock them into a reality. A question for you, Dyrus. Maybe you can speak to, was there ever a moment in your career where you looked at a weekend and you said, there's definitely one opponent that maybe requires more of my attention and preparation, and then in hindsight, looking back, had regretted the fact that you maybe didn't pay as much attention to the lesser opponent?
Well, you see, when you ask a player that, it's not only just the players, the entire team, the coaching staff, the players, you know, coming together and be like, this person's a real threat. For example, last year when we played against Team Liquid, we'd be like, you know, Quas dominating Special are the ones that really start up the plays and the ones that really, you know, threaten the other team. And that when they win the game, it's these players. When they lose the game, it's also these players not doing what they're supposed to be. So when you ask me that, I'm thinking, as a team, how are we going to shut this person down? Do we need to pick up a new champion? And that goes into a whole nother topic of when you pick up a new champion, such as Rumble Jungle, that's been played before, and you played for the first time on stage, like, how did it go? Are you going to play it again? Like, how does it translate? And when you play it for the first time, it's kind of scary, especially for a team that's been on an undefeated spree, and maybe complacency might get the better of them eventually, but if not, that just makes them more scary.
Yeah, it will be. Oh, go ahead.
So I was just going to ask you, if you're looking at Immortals, which would be the players that stand out to you as the ones that you want to target? Because there's been a lot of talk of, you know, who's the
real threat on that
exactly,
team?
And they all seem like pretty viable threats.
Well, Huni and Reignover went undefeated in Europe LCS, and the rest of the players are extremely solid at the same time. So we have a winning formula here to look at.
I guess maybe you just attack the people who have like the ridiculous winning streak in regular season, right? You know, at this point now, 29-0 or something, 18 and then 11, absolutely nuts. Moving forward, let's see. It's an explosive day of action. You guys were blowing up Twitter with your LCS big plays. First up, Delusional Zen called out his favorite moment from Cloud9's comeback win, saying, "Balls' late game barrel chain, the stuff of legends." Double IE, goodbye TSM. Let's check it out.
Doublelift trying to stand up front. His crits will change this fight. There's another hit from Balls. He comes up huge. The double kill for Sneaky. They could wipe out Team Solomon right here. And they have Baron to get in the base. You have to be kidding me.
Cloud9 timed that really well. Here's the barrel chain. Boom! Doublelift and Svenskeren get destroyed by the barrel chain right there.
I mean, everything about that game, there were so many team fights that had so many little things going on. It was actually really cool to watch. So many players on that team played really well in the team fights, but Balls was the one cranking out the DPS. It was like over 1,200 DPS. Or damage per minute.
Hopefully not DPS.
Excuse me. Damage per minute. Wow.
Yeah, but over 1,200 DPS.
But that's definitely one of the highest numbers that I've ever seen. Not even just this year, but that is ridiculous.
And Zyrene pointed it out yesterday on the analyst desk when we were watching that same replay there. But just how that single barrel could have gotten lost in the chaos of the team fight for so long, and Balls left it up, and then that was the one that was the initiator for the chain reaction that ended up winning them the fight. It just kind of speaks to the intensity of these games and how just a tiny little element like that can really swing a game one way or the other.
Just Gangplank things. He just does so much damage, and if you leave him alone, no one wants to attack the barrel, boom.
Yep.
1,000, 2,000 damage crit.
Right.
And at the same time, him positioning so well in all the fights and just never dying, he's just racking up the damage points.
Yeah, absolutely insane plays for him. Our next highlight was called out by GG Get Jinxed from our marathon match between Liquid and Echo Fox, who writes, Latucan OP. They forgot about him like people forgot about Dre, and he gets a quadra kill. Here it is.
And Keith is still alive. He's doing so much damage. It's a double kill. It's another one picked up. That's everybody from Team Liquid just dropping. Oh my God, Keith is a superhero.
Nice. What's happening? Save the Lucian. Save the Lucian. Save the Lucian. Get Ulster. Get Ulster. Lucian's fine. Ulster. Ulster. Run it. Holy shit. Kill him. Run down.
Yeah, I think the best part of that replay is the difference between big shot calling and Froggen shot calling.
God.
Because Froggen, you can tell he's the senior guy. He's very calm. He's like, push mid, guys, push mid. Just kill him, guys.
Yeah. Froggen's died. He's sitting there. He's like muffled by every other voice in the comms, and he's like, guys, just push mid, please, for the love of God, win the game. But anyway, that was fantastic play from Keith. It's good to see another member of that team step up, kind of illustrating the point that it isn't just Froggen. Froggen might be the leader of the pack, but he does have a solid roster behind him. Now, keep calling out your big plays throughout the day by tweeting at LOL Esports and use the hashtag LCS Big Plays. Or if you're angling to get your tweet on PTL, use hashtag ThePenta. Now, we can't invite a distinguished guest like Dyrus to the analyst desk without giving you at home an opportunity to pick his brain. So send your questions for Dyrus to at LOL Esports and be sure to include the hashtag AskDyrus. We'll pick some of your questions and have him answer them later in the show. With that, though, the midseason invitational is just around the corner, and we need to start evaluating where different regions stand, or rather, dance. Now, on Thursday, Captain Jack dropped a new dance as part of a post-game celebration, and yesterday, GBM answered the call with a dance of his own. So my question to you guys is, who do you think is better?
Just my initial reaction is Captain Jack. It felt like he had it planned, and he was set on doing it. And GBM was definitely spur of the moment thing, and he just kind of went into it half-hard, but
There's like camera angles.
Captain Jack had a better angle.
I think a lot of it was like the hype of like beating them, you know? He's just so happy and surprised about it.
Right, Longzhu over SKT is definitely reason for celebration.
And specifically Captain Jack over Faker. Like, those two players have a very complicated history in solo queue and everything.
They love each other.
I think
exactly.
Yeah, I think we might all be in agreement. We could probably give an edge to Captain Jack there. The enthusiasm plus the spur of the moment reaction to the winning of the game probably takes the cake there, but we'll see. We've still got time for NA to brush up on their new dancing skills. But now it's time to send it over to the casters to get us into the first game.